And we're back with the program. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And as part of the inside sports scene, we thought we'd go back into the world of the NBA. And who better to do it with me than the man in the know when it comes to the NBA scene? It's Anthony Barbarin. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Always good to be on. Love talking sports, love talking basketball with you. So I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy as well. Anytime we can talk anything related to the round ball, I just love the opportunities indeed. It's still a little bit of ways off. As we talked about before we went on the air, camps are still on the way out, but you know what? It's still going to be a great season coming up. But we've got to talk about some of the couple things that have come up over the past couple weeks as far as during the summer is concerned. And what better topic to talk about than the Kyrie Irving trade and how that's reshaping the Eastern Conference. Kyrie Irving of the, then Cleveland Cavaliers decided over the summer he did not want to play or demanded a trade, didn't want to be part of a LeBron James-led Cleveland Cavaliers team. So he decided to maybe make his position clear that he didn't want to come back to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they were able to engineer a trade with the Boston Celtics. If you haven't heard, but I think pretty much every sports fan out there has. So in its place, Cleveland got a first-round pick, the upcoming draft, a second-round pick, also as well Ante Zizic, also as well Jay Crowder, and of course as well Isaiah Thomas. So I ask you, first and foremost, on paper, who do you think may or may not have won the trade when it comes to Kyrie Irving going to the Celtics?
I would say on paper, just winning the trade team for team, maybe the Boston Celtics for the long haul. But if you're talking about team for team right now, I think you can give it an even split depending on the health of Isaiah Thomas, because of what you get with Jay Crowder, what you get with Isaiah Thomas when he comes back. And I mean, Cleveland is still my pick to come out of the East. So as long as they have LeBron, I think they're a class of the Eastern Conference. But for the long haul past this year, I can see maybe the Boston Celtics won that trade.
Well, and that's something I want to delve into more, because there are serious questions when it comes to Isaiah Thomas' hip, so much so that actually that held up the trade, and actually Cleveland got an additional second-round draft pick in order to complete the trade and have it go through. So I ask you, Anthony, it looks very serious as far as the hip injury for Isaiah Thomas is concerned. And in his free agent contract year, he wants to play the best he can, but it doesn't look like that may happen till at least the second half of the season, correct?
That's been the prognosis, is that he could be out into December, maybe even, up into the All-Star game. I think as long as he has gel with the team and he's ready for the playoffs, they'll be fine. There's not a lot of resistance in the Eastern Conference. Again, as long as they're healthy, they picked up Derrick Rose in the offseason. They still have LeBron. They still have Love. So they'll be fine. But as long as regardless, I think this is a 1-year maneuver on the part of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't see them re-signing Isaiah Thomas for the long haul. There's been speculation that LeBron's going to leave after this year. So I think this is like their best effort to try to put enough around them to compete one more time.
Well, and I don't blame you on that, and for thinking that, because I agree with you as far as re-signing Isaiah Thomas, unless something miraculously happens and he shows domination during the playoffs. I believe that he will probably go find a contract elsewhere within the league. Obviously, a 5'9", point guard with a potentially bad hip issue is something that a lot of teams will be scared away from this coming off season, and that's for him. That's that's very sad because he's worked so hard. He's had everything put in front of him as far as roadblocks is concerned. Being the last pick in the draft the year he came out, and then being behind other individuals on the roster, and not really getting his chance until he came over to Boston, and in such a big way helped that Boston team become a major force in the Eastern Conference. It's so sad to see, the fruits of his labor not being able to come to full fruition, and so much is riding on his future on how he comes back, if he comes back at this point in time, because this could be something that chronically be wrong with him for at least the entire season. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to say that Cleveland may still be the best of the Eastern Conference because obviously the great LeBron is there. But there are two factors. LeBron is getting a little older, but he stays in tremendous shape. So I expect still dominance there. But because there is no Kyrie Irving there and there's no Isaiah Thomas there to compensate, I think there might be some issues with a lot of the regular season riding on his performance. So they're going to Cleveland have to gauge carefully exactly how they're going to utilize LeBron because they don't want to wear him out before the playoffs. So we might have a situation where their record may not be the best in the Eastern Conference at the time the playoffs roll around, but I definitely think if they can get LeBron in a healthy situation and add Isaiah Thomas at a competent level at that point in time, definitely look out for them come playoff time. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But your thoughts on maybe the tendency that the Cleveland Cavaliers might utilize LeBron James too much over the course of the season?
I definitely think that's a possibility. They've always used him as much as they can. Even last year, I think he was at the top of the league in usage. I think he led the league in minutes. So they're going to use him. He does keep himself in tremendous shape. I think that's why he misses games. I know everybody, does the hoopla and all up in arms about him missing games, but that's why he misses games and there's this thought process that, you can limit minutes. Limiting minutes is not the same as days rest. This, 5 to 8 games over the course of the season, I think it gives him a fresher look going into those long games.
And this new agreement with the players union about lengthening the schedule to have better days off, to actually structure very few of the 4 games and 5 nights deals that they had so much of in the past, and reduce the number of back-to-backs may help him as well, correct?
Right. I think he'll still miss games. I think that play on the part of the NBA was so that he does not miss big games, so that they don't begin to rest stars when you have on Thursdays and big games, ABC games on Sunday, those kind of games where they've tried to put together these monster games during the course of the season on the schedule. They don't want those games missed. I don't think they're too concerned with the Tuesday night game, in Milwaukee, as much as, the Christmas Day game or, again, the Sunday game against the Lakers or whoever the big money teams are. I think those are the games that they don't want them to miss. But lengthening of the schedule is their way to try to meet the players halfway in regards to fixing that issue.
I definitely think so as well. And personally, as we'll get into in a little bit, in regards to the schedule, I think they could go ahead and even make it a more profitable situation for themselves and the league as well. But definitely, this could be some issues with Isaiah Thomas' hip. But we talked about Jay Crowder a little bit. Jay Crowder has really got a great contract and has provided a very nice standard with his three-point shooting ability and the fact that he can play very, very solid defense.
Right.
However, However, if he gets into a matchup with in the finals, if people are looking for him to play a lot on Kevin Durant, yes, he will probably play a lot on Kevin Durant, but to have him being expected to stop Kevin Durant, uh, or maybe even slow him down, I think is a little bit beyond expectations because there are very few players, period, who can slow Kevin Durant down at this stage, correct?
Absolutely. I think when it gets to the finals, I think LeBron will most likely carry that responsibility. You'll probably switch Crowder back and forth from Klay Thompson to Steph Curry, giving you some flexibility there. I think is more important. That's kind of what they wanted from Iman Shumpert, and he wasn't that this year. So they've let him do whatever, and I think not Jay Crowder. I'm sorry, Jay Crowder is one of the big gets in this trade. I think he was one of the pieces that really made them say, okay, we can do this. He can be very, very influential on the defensive end. And I think he brings also a bit of an attitude in them trying to go back, I think, to what they were 2 years ago, playing defense, being gritty when they won the championship, as opposed to last year when they wanted to go, let's spread them out, let's shoot a bunch of threes, and let's play towards what the NBA is trying to become rather than being what they were and imposing their will.
I can't agree with you more on that. Like I said, Jay Crowder, he's a very nice get in the trade. It definitely has a very, very appealing contract over the next 3 years at a very, very reasonable price, all things considering. Of course, I would love to be paid $7 million a year myself, and I think you would too, Anthony, sounds like.
Absolutely.
As well. But definitely in respect and to everything in the NBA, he definitely has a very palatable contract and definitely provides a good depth for the Cleveland Cavaliers, which they sorely need, and definitely will help them out over the long haul of the season. So that being said, it looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers, even though the trade on the surface might favor Boston a little bit, I think over this season we will still see, if Isaiah Thomas comes back strong from that hip injury at some point in time of the year. It doesn't have to be right away. Obviously, will most likely be at the second half of the year. If he does, that's going to make Cleveland a force come playoff time, and hopefully be able to give and provide a better challenge to whoever comes out of the West, which will most likely be Golden State. Yes, I think you and I even already acknowledge that at this point.
Right.
Time, so.
Yeah. There's barring injury, I don't see anybody being able to compete with Golden State in the Western Conference.
And nor do I. So it's it's not like we had to put people in suspense when we do our NBA preview show this time next month or anything like that. It's like it's not a surprise. It's almost as if here in Vegas the odds are it's Warriors and everyone else, and it is definitely, look at this point in time, like it was Warriors in the field. But like I said, we'll delve more into that in our NBA preview show in an upcoming episode down the road next month. But I will talk to you about a couple other issues that have come about over the past few weeks. One is obviously the commissioner of the NBA, Adam. He is going to impose possibly some legislation to the owners to help fix the lottery system so that it will try and further diminish the possibility of teams outright tanking, and i.e. trying to do everything they can to lose games to get a better draft position. So I want to hear your thoughts on what you think about this policy possibly being changed, and do you think tanking is a huge issue in the NBA?
A huge issue. I think the NBA, out of all the leagues, the professional leagues, has one of the best anti-tampering systems when you talk about the draft lottery. Unlike the NFL, if you have the worst record, you get the first pick. In the NBA, you can have the worst record and not get the first pick in the draft, or even a top 5 pick. Tanking is a huge issue. I think, honestly, I think that there's just so many teams in the league and there's not enough talent. That's really the issue. There's also a free agency problem. A lot of these teams are in undesirable destinations, places that players don't want to play. There's a reason that all these NBA players are going to the Western Conference to, teaming up in cities that are viable, cities that they can have good family lives.
And this begs the question because, with the way the current CBA is structured, the collective bargaining agreement that the Players Union and Adam Silver, the NBA Commission came up with, as far as the agreement they come up with, it is kind of concerning because the incentivations that you give the player for staying at these teams is much higher, but they're still, like you said, they're wanting to go where either the teams, the prominent names, or the family life is much preferred, correct?
And I think in the past, these incentives would have been much more desirable, but I think some of these players they're becoming more intelligent at analyzing their situations and looking at, like, for guys with money, they can look at other opportunities to get money in other facets by being in better areas, being in better situations. So I think that's where they're going, and they're thinking about being happier.
And they're willing to risk and they're willing to give up, let's say, 10, 20, $30 million over the course of a 3 to 5 year, sometimes 6-year contract in order to do so, which makes, in a lot of cases, a lot of sense because they're still generating a lot of income anyways.
Right. So, and that's a big thing. So, you give these players, in my opinion, there's a lot of teams that are prime candidates for relocation. And I think relocation in a lot of these cities, or with a lot of these teams, would help alleviate that. I know they were talking about expansion, which I think is not a great idea in terms of product on the court.
Because you think the players' pool is diluted, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the free agency clump in the Western Conference is not helping. With everybody moving toward the same teams, it's not helping island around the NBA. So when you have that combined with the fact that a lot of these teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, are in undesirable locations, it's putting the shot. There's a deep end and a shallow end now. As far as talent in the NBA and teams to teams.
I think that's a very astute observation, and I'm hoping that the NBA will recognize this at some point, because as you see in the NFL, teams are just willing, if they don't get what they want, they're just willing to up and move anyways. And we could see that same trend follow in the NBA, and if it does, I'm here in Vegas. I know we could use an NBA team, kind of. Yeah, but if we can support an NFL team, I think an NBA team and an NHL team, I think we could support an NBA team nonetheless. But that being said, I agree with you as far as the to the point of the actual schedule and obviously the salaries and the teams and whatnot. But I kind of say that I think there is an issue with the tanking because last year there was notable teams like the Lakers, to some extent, even though they were saying they were trying to win, it became obvious that maybe that's not the case near the end because Phoenix Suns were doing a much better job of trying to lose over the years. The Philadelphia 76ers, they've been accused and have obviously made attempts to try and be as bad as possible to garner high picks. And there's been a couple other teams noted as well. In fact, Atlanta this year looks like it's doing its very best to try and structure its team to be as bad as possible at this point in time. So I think there's still an issue with tanking and trying to level the playing field in the draft. Obviously, actually also makes it more interesting for those teams that are closer to playoff contention that could land a big big pick that could land them over the hump. And I think that would just make things more exciting myself as well. So I'm looking for something to change and be affected in that realm, because if it becomes more obvious this year that there is teams that are that are really trying to go ahead and make it obvious that they're tanking, even though they're going to say they're not. I think it's going to be hard pressed for the league to not do something more extensive about it. And I see those changes coming at least. So that's something to think about right there, and definitely want to talk about that more as we go along during the season as well. And one last thing I want to ask you before I got to let you go is, because we've talked about this right now being kind of almost like a dead time right now in the league, because camps haven't opened up yet. Free agency is gone for the most part. The summer league is already well and done with. Alonzo Ball mania has already died down a bit and whatnot. I want to ask you, the league is becoming now pretty much a 9 to 10 month type window where they can pretty much garner a lot of attention within not only the sports realm, but also the realm of general talk out there and whatnot, which is good and grabs the attention. For the sport that you and I love, would it be best to not only lengthen that season just a little bit longer, start camp sooner, or have the free agency season start on August the 1st, so you get even a longer window for people to talk about all the things going on in the NBA?
I think I like what they've done so far, which was in their attempt to stop the players from resting. They lengthened the season, and I'm ecstatic about. So I don't have to wait until October 30th for the NBA season to start. It starts in a month, middle of October, which I think is a perfect time. I think, like you said, it's like 8 to 10 months where you really talk NBA. I think it's more in the 8 realm. This year, I think the Kyrie thing lengthened the talk about the NBA a lot longer.
Plus, also the summer league was as well with
right.
Ball Mania kind of, and also free agency. But I was saying, now that the summer league has now become a kind of like an event in and of itself among NBA purists, that if they move the free agency period to not coincide with that, they could actually lengthen out where the NBA season becomes a talk for maybe almost 10 to 11 months out of the season.
How that would affect the draft, though. If you push it past the draft, I think, because now it starts, pre-draft.
A free agency starts right after, about 2 weeks after the draft.
After the draft? Oh no, I get what you're saying now.
You still have the draft you still have the draft after, shortly after the season ends, after the
right.
championship banner is held and all that. But I'm just saying, have that draft 2 weeks later. Obviously the summer league continues, but then don't coincide it with the start of free agency, where you have a mix mash of everything going on. So, separate it out, or at least until the end of the summer league before you start free agency, so people can still talk about the NBA for even longer. Because your product with the NFL is almost a 12-month season to a lot of people, because those NFL diehards are talking about NFL all year long, even though the actual season is far less than that. With the NBA, they have an ultimate advantage where they can actually continue to provide information and excitement to NBA fans all around the world if they just moved a couple of things, maybe the season just a little bit closer to the beginning of October. I'm not suggesting beginning October, but closer to it, maybe a week earlier. And then also as well, moving back the start of free agency, where you have all that hot free agency action going in the month of August.
That actually, sounds like a viable option if they want to, because the competition is NBA, NFL when it comes to media talking points, having your sport out there. And the NBA has actually been doing a very good job lately, the last few years, of garnering more real estate, if you will. They're starting to take on more months where, the NFL was really dominant until the Super Bowl, and then that was the NBA months talking point. Now you're starting to push more through the summer. So those months that the NFL is off, the NBA has been snatching that media real estate where you get more talking points with free agency. So like you said, I can see pushing it back. Free agency period can give you a little bit more. It'll bleed into the NFL talk a little bit, but which will still dominate. The NFL talk will still dominate, but it can give you some more revenue in that sense. So I think that is a viable option.
Well, that's something, like I said, just throwing it out there, just seeing what your thoughts would be on it. At least there's still, with an August 1st time frame as far as free agency is concerned, you're still talking about almost 2 months for teams to sign players, and there still would be like a 3 to 3 week, 4 week window where the NBA doesn't have the spotlight, which I know for a lot of NBA fans out there is too long of a period indeed. But it's all, like you said, it's all about keeping the attention focused on your league. And I think that the NFL in the past has done a smart job of doing so, and I think the NBA took note of that. And if they really truly want to make this a global front and center game, like they've always been talking about for close to 25 years now, then definitely we need to, they need to go ahead and take a couple more steps in order to keep the sport of the NBA at the forefront of sports fans' minds. So definitely something to think about there, throwing that out at you, seeing what you think. So if you have any thoughts on any of the subjects, whether it's Kyrie Irving trade, whether it's us talking about lengthening the time frame in which the NBA takes center stage, or anything else in regards to expansion, or basically the way the players' contracts are out there and structured and whatnot, please send us your thoughts at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, Game Source, or Humanican Media on Facebook and Twitter as well. And I'll tell you what, Anthony, it's just so great to talk to you each and every time. I truly appreciate you taking the time to sitting down with me and talking nothing but NBA great action. And I'm chomping at the bit. I'm telling you, it's almost time. It's right around the corner. Training camps are almost open, and I know you and I both can't wait to see what's going to go on this NBA season.
Absolutely.
All right. Again, that is Anthony Barbarin, our man in the know when it comes to the NBA. Like I said, if you have any questions for him, don't hesitate to send us an email or shoot us a DM, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, or Inside Sports, Humanican Media, Game Source, and Pop Culture Cosmos. Oh, thanks again for joining us, and we're going to send it back to you back at Inside Sports with Charles Smith Jr. and Chris Lardieri.